Picture this. A man goes into a dark cave looking for treasure and gets stuck. But not just stuck for an hour or two. Stuck for 17 days. Buried alive underground while the whole world watches. This is the shocking true story of Floyd Collins, and what happened to him will make your skin crawl. It was January 30th, 1925, and Floyd Collins was feeling great. After weeks of hard work, he had broken through to a secret room in Sand Cave, Kentucky. This narrow, twisted tunnel had been his project for so long. He spent days pulling out rocks and dirt just to squeeze through a tiny crack. Floyd pushed himself through that crack and slid down 8 feet to the floor of a huge room. He planned to turn this into a place where people would pay money to visit. This was Floyd's big dream coming true. But then something went wrong. His gas lamp was running out of fuel. Floyd had to get out fast. He climbed back up and pulled his body through the narrow crack. When he pushed the lamp forward, the rough surface caught it and flipped it over. The light went out. Floyd would have to travel back in complete darkness. He lay on his back and used his legs to slide across the sharp rocks below. He put his foot on the wall and pushed his body back. Suddenly there was a loud rumbling sound. Rocks and dust filled the tight tunnel. Floyd screamed in pain as he choked on the falling dust. The rocks kept falling as he struggled, trying to move his left leg from what felt like a trap holding his ankle. Then he realized something terrible. His arms were trapped just as tight as his legs. Floyd was buried in a tunnel only 16 inches high, over 140 feet into the earth. The pain was shocking, but this was not the first time Floyd had been trapped in a cave. Just 1 year before, it took 2 days to get him out of Crystal Cave. But this time, he was all alone. It was Friday morning, and he did not expect anyone to come looking for him soon. He tried hard to fight against the pile of rocks, but his left foot would not move at all. It was trapped under a large rock. His arms were stuck in rocks and dirt packed around his body. Floyd took deep breaths to calm down and started the long wait. Someone would come looking and see his jacket hanging outside the cave entrance. The complete darkness and silence made the water dripping on his face extra annoying. A slow drip hit his face every few minutes. After hours of fighting against rocks that would not move, he fell asleep to escape this nightmare for a while. When Floyd woke up, he was shocked by his situation. It was completely black, and his face was wet with no way to reach up and wipe the water away. He shook his head back and forth, which was the only movement he could make. He screamed on and off, hoping someone might hear him. The landowner's teenage son went to check on Floyd since he never came back. Jewel Estes saw Floyd's coat and slid inside the cave entrance. He called out to Floyd, and a very relieved Floyd called back that he needed help. Jewel was small, but did not know caves well. He could hear Floyd, but did not have the courage to go deeper. Floyd sent Jewel to get adults who knew rescue work. Even though Floyd was hungry and thirsty, he felt better that someone knew where he was. More than 24 hours had passed in this position. The water kept dripping on his face, and the terrible pain in his foot never stopped. One of his brothers made it to the cave but could not reach where Floyd was trapped. After more than 100 feet of crawling, he was looking at a hole just under 9 inches high and as wide as a sheet of paper. It was impossible for bigger men to get through. They sent for Floyd's younger brother, Homer. At 22, he was small and had cave experience with Floyd. It was 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon when Homer arrived. He realized his brother had been without food or water for 30 hours and was in serious trouble. Homer squeezed through 100 feet of passage to the narrow, blocked area. Others had turned around here, but Homer had no choice. His brother was stuck on the other side of this little hole. Homer had to push forward with his toes while scraping along his belly. The slide down to Floyd was just 10 feet, but very narrow. The tunnel would hold his body straight up, making it hard to bend down and help Floyd. Still, Floyd was happy to finally see someone. Homer slid down to help but found the situation shocking. Floyd was buried up to his chest in broken rocks. Because everything was so tight, Homer could not just reach in and pull rocks out. There was nowhere to move them to. Homer brought coffee and sausage to Floyd, giving Floyd new energy knowing his family was here to save him. Homer moved up and down trying to pull Floyd, move rocks to free his arm, and dig out the floor. Since no one else could squeeze through the hole, Homer was on his own. Each time he pulled away a rock, more fell from above. Homer was desperate and worked on and off for the next 16 hours. It was 8 o'clock Sunday morning when Homer came out. He needed help because he could barely walk from all the hard work. He fell down and begged someone to go help dig his brother out. A crowd had started to build while Homer was underground. Word had spread that Floyd was really trapped this time, and local people began gathering to help. Several men worked into the cave tunnels but came to the narrow opening. A few were so scared they turned back right away. It looked like a falling hole of big rocks. All day Sunday, the growing crowd talked about ways to get Floyd free, but no one could get through the small squeeze. The entire day, no one reached Floyd to give him water, food, or comfort. It was now 3 full days of being trapped. This was shocking to Floyd. His situation was not better. His arms were still trapped, his foot was still crushed, and there seemed to be no plan to get him out. Floyd was feeling weak and cold, lying in a pool of cold, muddy water and sharp rocks. News had traveled that a man was stuck in a cave for 3 days, so reporter William Miller showed up. Hundreds of people had started showing up just to stare at the rescue teams, and it had become quite a show. Miller crawled through the twisting tunnel until he came to the narrow opening. He was shocked by the size of the rocky hole. It was barely bigger than a sheet of paper. Luckily, Miller was thin, weighing only 117 pounds. Miller pulled his chest and hips through the opening with twisting and bending. The path on the other side was less than 16 inches high, so he crawled forward to a small ledge. He could see over the edge was a 10-foot drop to where Floyd was trapped. Floyd's face was covered with cloth, which Miller quickly took off. Right away, Floyd asked him to put it back. The torture of water drops had been steady for 3 days, and he could not take it anymore. Miller asked questions and gave Floyd a drink before climbing back up. Miller was shocked. He had never seen such a hopeless situation. Once out, he wrote his story and sent it over the news wires. The news story took off, and the whole nation was interested in the man stuck in the cave. A local firefighter, Lieutenant Robert Burton, showed up with a plan. He was going to pull Floyd free with ropes and a harness. Burton squeezed into the narrow shaft, becoming just the 3rd person to reach Floyd face to face. He was amazed at Floyd's terrible situation. Burton struggled to wrap the harness around Floyd's chest because very little of Floyd was showing. The 3 men pulled with everything they had while Floyd screamed in terrible pain. Unfortunately, the effort failed and mostly pressed Floyd's face and chest against sharp rocks. They were literally crushing him. It was Monday, and another plan had failed. At 9 o'clock that night, Floyd's longtime friend Johnny Gerald arrived. He was sure Floyd would get out because he always had before. Johnny was an experienced cave person, so when Floyd heard his old friend was here, he yelled out with relief. Johnny jammed his body through the tiny hole, moving small rocks as he went. The dusty dirt falling around him was frightening. He belly crawled to the ledge and looked down to see his old friend at the bottom. Floyd felt the first moment of joy in days. Johnny tried to slide down feet first, but was stuck in the narrow shaft. It was clear he would not fit. Johnny could hear how desperate Floyd sounded and could not bear to leave. Johnny spent the next 3 hours chipping away rock in the narrow shaft, carefully catching pieces to prevent hitting Floyd below. By midnight, Johnny was tired, but ready to try again. This time, he was able to slide down and reach Floyd. For the next 6 hours, Johnny put his strength to good use. He filled buckets with rocks and stones that had buried Floyd's chest. Each effort required him to press his head at a weird angle to reach into Floyd's tunnel. After a terrible 6 hours, Johnny had gone as far as he could. His stocky body could not reach any farther than Floyd's upper thigh area. It was early Tuesday morning, and Johnny headed back up to rest. After Johnny left, Floyd lay alone in his narrow tunnel for the next 12 hours. It seemed like progress had been made, but the main problem still existed. No matter how hard he pulled or twisted, his foot would not move. He was cold and truly afraid, lying in 50-degree muddy water. Floyd had been stuck for more than 4 full days and had not seen the sun since Friday morning. He was feeling strange and starting to see things that were not there, like angels and dreams of sleeping in his own bed. Miller realized he was among the few who could reach Floyd, so he gathered cave workers and decided to continue Johnny's work. At 5:30 Tuesday evening, he returned to the narrow shaft and used a bucket to continue taking out loose rocks around Floyd's legs. Miller was steadily clearing bucket after bucket until he could get a better look at the rock causing the problem. Workers had put lights through the tunnel. This extra lighting showed what had not been understood until now. The rock was not just heavy and pressing on Floyd's foot. It had slipped down into the crack of the cave below. This created a wedge that trapped the rock so tightly that neither pushing nor pulling would move it. Of all their supplies, the only thing that could fit into the tiny hole was a crowbar and a small jack. Miller was running on pure energy and felt hope that Floyd might be free in just a few hours. The jack and crowbar were slowly pushed into the end of the tunnel near Floyd's feet. Miller could not reach that far, but pushed with his fingertips to slide the jack in place. He slowly turned the handle to try to raise the platform to the rock's edge. It was very slow work, leaning forward and reaching out with fingertips. His back hurt badly while trying to make it work. Floyd's quiet, calming words stayed in his mind. Gently, Floyd encouraged him. "You can do it, fella. I believe in you, fella." At one point, the jack had a good grip on the rock's edge, and Miller turned it, sensing the rock was starting to lift. Then the whole thing fell apart with a quiet clank. He tried again and again, each time making small changes but never moving the rock. At 1 o'clock in the morning, after 8 long hours of trying, he fell down with exhaustion. He was completely beaten. He wrapped the last light bulb around Floyd's neck for warmth and went back to the surface. It was now Wednesday, February 4th. Workers were trying to figure out if they could make the tiny hole wider when a frightening rumbling was heard from within. Workers told the team above there had been a cave-in. The entire tunnel was not stable, and anyone going inside would be risking their life. Johnny Gerald again offered to go inside. He got to the area of the cave-in and got to work moving rocks. It seemed hopeless, with problem after problem. One rock at a time was carefully pulled away. This effort took more than 8 hours. Just when he did not think he could move anymore, he was able to make a small opening that showed the light still glowing inside. Floyd was still talking, though he seemed weaker after nearly 6 days of being trapped. It was 10:30 at night, and finally the path was opened once again. Johnny went out to collect tools to chip away at the rock on Floyd's foot. They were confident this would be the successful effort to get Floyd out alive. They crawled through to the narrow room and were shocked by what they saw. The ceiling had poured into the narrow passage leading down to Floyd. The cave-in was bigger and heavier than before. With the melting snow, the walls and ceiling had swelled, and the weight could not be held back. Johnny yelled out to Floyd, and Floyd returned the call. He was alive, and Johnny could not just leave him there. The walls seemed to be moving and breathing, ready to bury him at any moment. The other men backed out of this area. Johnny was alone, digging in the pile of dirt. It was sickening. If he turned and left, he would basically be abandoning his friend's only chance at rescue. He scooped out the new pieces in the hole, and it just refilled from an endless source above. Larger rocks started falling down the pile. It was truly a death trap. Johnny made the hardest decision of his life, but he had a family of his own. He went back to the entrance while new piles of stones and rock piled up in the path. He sat down and cried. He was done. It was now clear that although Floyd was still alive inside the tight tunnel, climbing in to rescue him would not be survivable. The governor brought in the National Guard, and the state took control of the rescue effort with a plan to dig a hole straight down to Floyd's location. On Thursday, February 5th, the 7th day of Floyd's trap, digging began. They were hopeful, expecting to reach Floyd within 30 hours. They needed to dig a shaft down 55 feet, then dig sideways to reach the narrow passage leading to Floyd. The excitement faded as hours turned into days and progress slowed. There were problems with equipment, collapses, hard soil, heavy rains, and arguments between people. This 30-hour dig stretched over the next 12 days. Yes, 12 full days of digging. During this time, there were news stories and radio shows about Floyd. As they got closer, it was thought they heard coughing deep in the shaft, keeping hopes alive that Floyd may still be living. He had a trickle of water, so it was possible for him to survive. The light bulb that had been hung around his neck was being watched for changes in the electrical signal. It was thought there was some interference with the electricity each time Floyd breathed. For days, they watched the scratchy interference coming through nearly 20 times a minute. This bulb was also helping to keep Floyd a bit warmer. On Friday, February 13th, the bulb that had been keeping Floyd warm burned out. There was no more signal on the line of any kind. It was 2 full weeks that Floyd had been trapped in suffering, an amazing amount of time under such a nightmare. The shaft diggers continued until Monday, February 16th, when they finally broke through the tunnel and entered the cave shaft. The first man through was only a few feet from Floyd. It was quickly determined that Floyd was dead. The coroner came down and officially declared him dead. He stated that Floyd had lived for around 14 days trapped in the tunnel. He appeared to have only been dead for 3 days. It was stunning. After the final cave-in, Floyd had just laid alone in the cave with only a trickle of water and the use of one arm for 9 days before he died. Floyd was an eager and talented cave explorer in a time when it would have meant everything to his family if he could discover a touring cave. He worked 12 hours a day for weeks trying to find that one special place he could turn into a business. In the end, he found exactly what he was looking for, because Sand Cave became a household name, along with Floyd Collins. The nation mourned his death and was horrified by the way it dragged on in a painful and drawn-out manner. The passion of his family, friends, and even strangers to help Floyd escape was truly powerful. Their heroic efforts should be remembered along with Floyd's life and passion.